Episode 2 of Sterling Point picks up after that big cliffhanger ending. Over at Sterling Point, Annie finds herself face to face with a girl called Ramona. Ramona explains that Gordon was her grandfather, and it soon becomes clear that Annie has a half sibling she never knew about. Annie struggles to actually explain her situation, and after crying, getting kicked out, and eventually being allowed to sleep on the couch, the pair struggle to sleep. Now Ramona has a letter of her own from Gordon, and she likes to smoke weed too, explaining her paranoia I guess, while Annie is awoken by the creepy clock downstairs. Now in the morning, Ramona forces Annie out after tipping her off the sofa. Annie reluctantly grabs her stuff and goes without explaining anything, and down by the water, Annie decides to use a kayak to find her way, but it winds up losing her oar, and eventually her luggage too, which doesn't go down well. This is the girl that's trying to get into business school, by the way. Thankfully, Rory shows up to save her. He also brings Annie over to his place, where he reveals their self-service at his pad. Annie phones Connor to break the news about Ramona, and she's determined to figure out the truth about their family. However, all the while, she continues to lie to their father about where she is. Just before they part ways, Connor breaks the very unsurprising news that Oliver has come out publicly to everyone that he's gay before telling Annie. This officially means they've broken up.
Oh no! Anyway.
Meanwhile, Ramona shows her face to the gang we met in episode 1, and they're shocked to see her. They all greet her warmly, and it seems like Ramona used to work with Ellis too. She's been gone for a long time, having looked after Gordon by herself, while he fell ill and eventually passed away. Given misunderstandings are in vogue right now, the one between Ramona and Annie continues throughout the episode. The Marina gang discuss exactly who Annie is, although they chalk it up to her just renting the place. Ramona eventually heads back home and does some digging, while Annie ends up at another party over at Rory's place. When Annie realises everything she knew about her mum is wrong, Rory comforts Annie down on the dock. Now Una winds up seeing Annie at Rory's place too, while she's working in the kitchen, and after getting fired for waving a knife around, feeds back the juicy gossip to Ramona. Ellis winds up a bit jealous of Annie and Rory here, while Ramona remains determined to get to the bottom of this and figure out the truth. When Ramona confronts Annie at Rory's place on the dock, the truth comes out in front of everyone. Ramona forces Annie in the boat with her, and the pair eventually hash out their differences alone away from the crowd. Annie explains here that Stephen and his new wife adopted Annie and Connor when they were newborns. Annie was under the assumption that her mother died of cancer when they were 2, and Annie never knew anything about Sterling Point until Gordon died. The letter mentioning Annie needing to find her seems to have been referencing Ramona too. Ramona had no idea about Annie either, but she refuses to believe they're blood related given the adoption. Ramona eventually tells her to go back to New York. That night, Ellis catches up with Annie and explains that Ramona has had it pretty rough these past few years. However, Annie is still reeling over Denise's revelation that it seems her mum had an affair and left when she was younger. Given this is far from being resolved, Ellis encourages Annie to stick around. Meanwhile, Una and Ramona discuss the unopened letter she has from Gordon. Eventually, she tells Una to read it, but within the letter it confirms Annie's story, and Ramona starts to realise that the pair have a lot more in common than she first thought. Ramona confronts Annie that night, and on the dock encourages her to come back to the house. Episode 3 of Sterling Point starts with Annie awoken by Ramona hammering on the roof. The pair are still awkward with each other, especially as Ramona brings up how she's fixing the place up so she can live here all year round. Given how painful Gordon's death has been on her, Ramona feels like she needs to get rid of some of the furniture and spruce the place up so it's not quite so painful to be around. Ramona has a box of old stuff to get rid of to the thrift store, but a lot of this actually belongs to their mum. While Annie is happy to revel in the memories, Ramona just wants to be rid of them. She won't even try to reason with Annie here, who finds a mixtape labelled Goldie, their mum's name, and heads off. Meanwhile, Ellis overcharges customers and pockets the extra cash for himself. Nobody seems to suspect a thing, as Ellis claims that the island is cash only. Outside, Ellis runs into Annie and agrees to hang on to the thrift store box of gear for her. They do head to the store though, indulging in some retail therapy. Annie wants to help get some bits for Ramona and suggests they organise an intimate gathering to commemorate Ramona. Ellis though doesn't think it's quite such a good idea. Now Rory rocks up while Annie is in the middle of buying a new chair for Gordon's pad. After helping get it back, Ramona isn't exactly happy given the pair's contrasting tastes. Ramona knows Annie is a lot, but at least indulges her a little, thanks in part to some words of wisdom from Sully, but she's not happy when she overhears Annie listening to Goldie's mixtape. Within the tape, Goldie mentions how much she loves Joe, the same Joe that happens to be Ellis's father. And Ramona heads out the house and immediately over to see Una at her houseboat. At the same time, Annie arrives to confront Joe. She quizzes him about the mixtape, but Joe plays coy and claims he and Goldie dated a bit at high school. They lost touch though when she moved to the city, and after a little trip down memory lane, Annie hands over the tape for him. In the morning, Ramona returns and shrugs off Annie's apology. She explains it was hard for her to hear Goldie's voice and take this trip down memory lane. As they sit together, they talk a little about Una, and it seems like Ramona may actually have the hots for her friend. Elsewhere, Stephen learns where Annie is thanks to a call from Oliver, coupled with Connor caving and admitting the truth. Eventually, Connor agrees to head out to Sterling Point and get Annie back. Annie, of course, is too busy sprucing Gordon's place up, ready for Ramona's party. When Ramona finds out, she immediately decides to head to bed instead. Unfortunately, this intimate gathering turns into a much bigger party, complete with music and drinks. Ramona is not particularly happy at this, given she'd rather just smoke weed and read. Well, Sully then teases her that Una will be showing up, so Ramona heads downstairs and immediately runs into Una's date for the night. It absolutely crushes her. Rory and Annie share a rather tender, slightly romantic moment here, while Ellis, suspiciously absent from the party, winds up fixing up a lamp for Annie at Joe's place. Una catches up with Ramona outside, where Una teases her about being jealous. As they share a moment together, it looks as though the pair are going to kiss, until Una's date Stacy calls her back inside. Now on the porchway, Annie continues to talk until Rory tells her he's going to kiss her. The pair get hot and heavy together, just as Ellis shows up with the lamp he's fixed. He doesn't say anything as he sees them from the window and walks away, dropping the lamp off on the porchway, clearly heartbroken. Now in the aftermath of this, Ramona and Annie talk about the latter's hookup. However, the attention then turns to Ramona's moment with Una. Annie is super enthusiastic about the whole situation and wants to know more. This certainly helps the pair vibe and for Ramona to warm up a little to her. Well, that is until Connor rocks up at the cottage that night holding the lamp. He brings up how the island is worth 22.7 million, and given they all own it together, Connor wants to sell up. That goes down like a lead balloon with the girls. So Sterling Point is starting to settle into a more consistent rhythm now, and while episode 2 was basically one big misunderstanding, episode 3 at least attempts to pull the love triangle and the soapy shenanigans forward into this more cohesive narrative. This chapter is still full of the usual tropes you'd expect in this genre though, like the passionate kiss spotted by the second male lead, the little misunderstandings cropping up all over the episode, and the clear friction between Ramona and Annie. Just as these two were starting to get along, a real wild card is thrown into the fold by Connor rocking up. Predictably, he wants to sell up the island, but the girls don't, so this should cause even more drama between all of them, and I'd imagine this will be the crux of the issue throughout the entire season. If that wasn't enough, we also get the wisps of romance between Una and Ramona, who I'd imagine will hook up by the end of the show. But what of this Stacy, I wonder? Either way, this one is just starting to get interesting. Thanks for watching, and do let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash a like or subscribe to the channel, your support is very much appreciated. I'm Greg Wheeler, and from all of us over here at The Review Geek, we'll see you on the next video.